Welcome to the program. Now, before we go into the major stories that we have to review, let's start with the meeting of the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, Mahmood Yakubu, with the national commissioners and the 36 resident electoral commissioners on Saturday to review last week's presidential election. The commission, after the meeting, agreed there were some flaws in the presidential election and promised to learn from some of the challenges that it faced.
The planning for the election was painstakingly done. However, its implementation came with challenges, some of them unforeseen. Arising from last week's election, the Commission has received reports from our state offices, as well as complaints and petitions from political parties and candidates. Where infractions of any kind are proven, there will be redress. As we approach the governorship and state assembly elections, we must work harder to overcome the challenges experienced in the last election. Nothing else will be acceptable to Nigerians. All staff found to be negligent, whether they are regular or ad hoc officials, including collation and returning officers, must not be involved in the forthcoming elections. RECs must also immediately initiate disciplinary action where prima facie evidence of wrongdoing has been established. Since last week, the Commission has intensified the review of the technology to ensure that glitches experienced, particularly with the upload of results, are rectified. We are confident that going forward, the system will run optimally.
INEC Chairman Professor Mahmood Yakubu there in an earlier meeting with resident electoral commissioners and, of course, national commissioners of the commission. Now we move on to the Court of Appeal, which has now acceded to the request by Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party and Peter Obi of the Labour Party to inspect electoral materials used in the conduct of last Saturday's presidential election. The duo, who lost to the APC's presidential candidate and President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, have alleged that the election was flawed. A panel of the appellate court led by Justice Joseph Ike made the order after it heard two separate ex parte applications by the two aggrieved presidential candidates, which were filed alongside their political parties. And listed as respondents in the matter were INEC, All Progressives Congress, and its presidential candidate, Bola Tinubu. Well, joining us from Asaba, the Delta State capital, is Ehidu Aniago, who is one of the spokespersons of the PDP presidential candidate, Atiku Abubakar. He's also the Commissioner for Information in Delta State. Thank you so much, Charles, for joining us. And so have you been taking the defeat of your presidential candidate since the election results were announced by INEC National Chairman early Wednesday? What have you been doing in terms of trying to articulate your points as you prepare to head to the courts fully when you have all the documents that you will be presenting? Of course, the Court of Appeal has granted you some reprieve alongside the candidate of the Labour Party. So what do you have to say to all of this?
Well, I will not want to disagree with you when you use the word defeat, because obviously you are taking cognizance of the pronouncement by the Independent National Electoral Commission. But for us, we saw it as a stolen mandate, and then, of course, the INEC not living up to the expectation of most Nigerians. You recall in the course of the many interactions we had ahead of these elections, we were quite clear that we had confidence in what INEC was putting together, and then the fact that we're going to deploy technology, particularly the beavers, and then, of course, the continuous insistence by the Independent National Electoral Commission that the results will be uploaded. And so we had confidence that no matter what, the wishes of Nigerians as expressed in the course of casting their ballot will be well represented. But most unfortunately, it turned out that what happened didn't tend to reflect the yearnings and aspirations of most Nigerians. Now, to your question as to what we are planning to do, my principal has made it very, very clear that there is a need to interrogate these elections, not only the result, but also the processes. When we were campaigning, we were quite clear on what we intended to do, which is to help to revive our country and put it back to winning ways. But unfortunately, this election now represents another low in our country. Most Nigerians are crying not just because the name of Asiwaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu was mentioned by the electoral body as a person that won the election in the thinking of the electoral body, but because they believe that the outcome is not as important as the processes leading to the result of the election. Individuals approach the ballot box with their ballot paper, cast their vote, and they were expecting that at the end of the day that it's going to be a true reflection. But as it is, most Nigerians seem not to have been convinced that that announcement is a reflection of what happened on the day that they voted. And so that is our worry, that we thought we could have another opportunity of indeed proving to the world that we are ready to make progress in a number of areas. Choosing our leaders is a very, very critical element of democracy, and particularly when we desire to ensure that our country begin to function in such a way that we begin to look in the direction of developed world. But what happened in terms of the outcome, as announced by the INEC, has not given us that hope. Unfortunately, most Nigerians also are worried about the ability of the judiciary to indeed stand very, very firm, not only in defense of democracy, but in defense of the rights of Nigerians to either freely choose their leaders or make decisions that will indeed add value to our democratic joining. So we have kickstarted the processes, not because we are desperate, but because we do believe that beyond the fact that we won that election, that it's important for us to begin to right the wrong so that Nigerians will know clearly that we are a country desirous of growth.
Now, Charles, you must have heard the INEC national chairman saying that there were some glitches. The chairman admitted that there were some challenges, and if I may quote him, he said the challenges range from the issues of technology, delay by election officials, attitudes of political parties, agents, among others. But a lot of Nigerians would have also been saying, if you have read from what people have been expressing their opinions about the election result, they would have said that there's no how the PDP or the Labour Party would have expected to win this election when they went into the election as a divided house, and that the results have shown how Nigerians actually took these political parties. 12 states for Labour Party, 12 states for the PDP, and 12 states for the APC. Isn't it somewhat, despite these challenges, a clear reflection that if the Labour Party and the PDP had gone into it as one, that maybe they could have pulled a surprise?
Well, that argument is very, very mundane. First, let us look at the submission of the chairman of INEC with respect to the issue of glitches. If your wife gets to the hospital for the purpose of delivering a baby, and the physician who is in charge of a such delivery comes up with some instrument, maybe like scissors, and then pierces through the head of the baby, and eventually brings out the brain of the baby, and then when the baby comes out, he begins to tell you that, you know, there are some glitches. That cannot just be a glitch. That is equivalent to murder. What the INEC did is cannot just be called glitches. If the law says that you must upload your result and transmit them electronically via the beavers to your IREF, and that is by law, not just by picking to or choosing what to do, and you didn't do that, that cannot be a glitch. If the law says that one needs to score two-thirds, 25, you need to score 25, which is a quarter of the vote, 25%, in two-thirds of the states and the FCT, and eventually the Labour Party is the only party that scored that 25%, and the APC did not, and you did not ask for proper interpretation from your lawyers to determine whether indeed the party that you declared as winner have indeed had met with a classification as very clearly stated in the Constitution, and you went ahead to announce a winner, and you end up calling it a glitch, a sample, that cannot be a glitch. It does appear that the chairman of INEC is in cahoot with the members of the APC. Perhaps in the course of interrogating this process through the judicial interrogation, we'll begin to see what may have transpired. I hope that we'll be able to do that. Now, on the issue of whether the Labour Party and the PDP could have gone into this race as one body, That is progressing in error. We are assuming there is only two political parties that will always exist forever in Nigeria. There are a whole number of youths who were not in any political party for a very long time, who came into the arena because they believed that P2B was going to make a difference. There are a number of other states, particularly in the northern part of this country, that believe that Atiku Abubakar is well positioned to be able to recover our country from the doldrums, and as such, also cast their ballot in that direction. I can mention a number of states that were hitherto referred to as the stronghold of the APC, where PDP won the election. So it is mundane for anybody to assume that these votes of the PDP was split into two. And beyond that, Sambo, when you look at the result in most of those areas that APC claim it won, you are seeing a governor in the state who is the chief campaigner for Bola Ahmed Tinubu losing his polling unit and even losing his senatorial bid. Yet, Bola Ahmed Tinubu of the APC is still able to do well. He's still able to do well in that state. That doesn't seem to suggest
isn't that some level of
because
credibility?
Because if a governor, that is not a credibility. It was masterminded to make it look as if, after all, they lost in some places. Go and look at the senatorial result, and then look at the presidential result. In the same election, these are people who are closer to those who are voting. Bola Ahmed Tinubu could not have been more popular in those states where those governors lost, and then he ended up either winning or scoring very high number to close the margin. You know what they did to me? I believe that they went to the southwest and tried to ensure that they have very high numbers, so that in the north, where they know they were going to suffer abysmal failure, they decided to bridge the gap. Those who have claimed that the results tend to have come from allocation rather than what people voted seem to be saying what looks like the truth in this election. We do hope that in the course of the legal issues of interrogating this election and the processes, we'll be able to get to the root of the matter. It is quite obvious
are you saying that
this is another loan. It's quite obvious that Mahmoud Jega did not remember that the man who handed over to him, Atahiru Jega, gave us an election that gave us hope in 2015.
Charles, if I may intervene here, the PDP has always been known to be, a master of this game. So what was the PDP busy doing? Was it just watching while the APC, allegedly, as you have said, was busy fiddling with the results? Or don't you also think that others are also saying that the PDP and Labour Party tampered with results in their own areas? Because parts of the Southeast people are saying that, look, the APC and PDP did poorly because some results showed almost 95%. And in some PDP strongholds, the APC and Labour Party did very poorly. So what do you say to those people who say that all political parties in one way or the other tampered with these elections?
Well, it is true for the APC and easy for the APC to want to throw up certain. I was listening to one of my very good friends yesterday, Shehu Gaban, talking about the election. A man who did not conduct or carry out live coverage when he was campaigning. I'm talking of the SDP. He never had any live coverage to campaign for the election. Yet he had a live coverage to be able to analyze the outcome of the election. So, Sambo, put 1 and 2 together as somebody who is in this field. You know how much it costs to have a live coverage. For him to campaign to produce a presidential candidate, he didn't have money to pay for live coverage. After an election, he had money to pay for live coverage to ask other people to leave it the way it is. Of course, you know what the APC is capable of doing. Now, you talked about the issue of master of the game. When we were coming in the course of the campaign, we said we want to change the way things are done and were done in the past. And that there was the need for us to recover the country and make us to begin to function much more effectively. And if that is what we were very much interested in doing, we were also very much interested in the processes that would have brought us to power. So that at the end of the day, we would not have come to power through the window. We were very much interested in accessing the house through the door. Unfortunately, because the APC and their leaders were very much used to jumping into the house through the window, they did not even only jump in through the window, they decided to remove the roof and then came in through the roof. But unfortunately, in coming through the roof, they allowed the house to have a lot of leaking spaces. In which case, by the time it starts raining, we will be beaten heavily. By the time it starts shining, it will also be very, very suffer from the scorching sun. What is most disturbing is the rhetoric coming from even those that are believed to have stolen the mandate of others. The APC seem not to understand the scenario of the moment, the situation of our country, the reason why most youth are angry, particularly those who decide to go the way of the obedience, as the Labour Party. You must distinguish between Labour Party and obedience. Labour Party is not popular. What is popular is the obedience. And because the roadmap to be able to achieve that power is the Labour Party, so it does appear as if Labour Party is in existence. But the question is, how did these our brothers and sisters become so angry? Because we find ourselves all of a sudden in a country where nothing is working, in a country where the Japa syndrome has become the order of the day, in a country where the economy has gone to the doldrums, in a country where the youth will graduate and they don't have job, in a country where insecurity has become the order of the day, in a country where even when you wake up, you are not even sure of the next meal. And now, the victory, so to say now, of the APC is an aggravation of that anger. And instead of the APC to progress in such a manner to manage the anger, they are speaking as if they have conquered all of us. Most unfortunately, and that is our fear, that APC does not have what it takes to put this country back to where we need to be. You will see what will happen in the days ahead. I do hope the judiciary will rise up to the occasion and do what is needful, because we are quite convinced, except a miracle happens, that the APC as led by Bola Ahmed Tinubu is not going to give us results.
All right,
the first example was
well, those are just assumptions. Now let's come to the issues that we have on ground now, which you're going to the presidential election tribunal. We have 160,878 results that have been posted. I'm looking at the IRF portal now by INEC, out of 176,846. So what's just left is about 16,846 results that are left. I want to ask categorically, have you looked at the manual copies that were given to your agents across the country and compared them with the loaded results that we already have now? At least more than 2/3 of the results have already been loaded, and found some discrepancies from the ones that are loaded on the IRF portal from the ones that your own agents of the PDP signed on election day after the results were announced at the polling units.
I have told you that we are going to proceed to interrogate these results. Yes, we have. But we begin to put it out there, it becomes also allowing the APC to have another way, because they can go and now manufacture new results. But you even take a look at it. Election took place about 8 days ago, last Saturday. And somebody is still uploading that result, even when we were told that it's going to be real time. That as soon as we are done at the polling unit, not at the state level, as soon as we are done at the polling unit. And the last time I checked, more than 80% of the results were already collated at the polling unit that same Saturday before 12 midnight. A few others, because of challenges that were pushed to the next day, had to come in. You had about 170,000, of course, with the exception of the few that INEC did not conduct an election on account of individuals not registering in those new polling units. Out of this number, up to today, they claim that they are still uploading. What are they uploading? You saw instances of results, the hard copies you talked about, that were mutilated. And when you have a mutilated result, you know that something is at stake. Where before now, even before the issue of the beavers, what were we used to? That as soon as you are done at the polling unit, you declare the result at the polling unit. You proceed to the ward level where you have the first collation. The first collation is usually at the polling unit, at the ward level, for you to collect the result that comes from the different polling units, because the polling units are components of the ward. The ward combines the polling units, so that when they say ward 7, you no longer think of the 14 units, as the case may be, in that particular ward, because the result of that ward 7 is an aggregate of whatever you have in the other units in that particular ward 7. Now, from that ward 7, you will proceed to the local government headquarters for the purpose of collating the ward results. So that if you have 10 wards or 14 wards, as the case may be, because the wards are different depending on the size of the local government by ward population and landmass, you now collect ward result. You don't go to the local government level to collect polling unit results. That is what we saw in this election. Because the moment you move to the local government to begin to collect polling unit results, you will see that a lot of water will pass both under the bridge and even on top of the bridge. And that was what we saw. But beyond that, you were supposed to proceed from the local government to the state level for the purpose of collecting local government results, not collecting ward results.
Yeah.
The APC and the INEC progressed in error, and that is why it seems that this particular election have fallen short of all threshold that tend to speak to transparency.
Now, Charles, before I let you go, the APC is disputing some of the provisions of the Electoral Act that you have copiously quoted. Now, Dele Alake, who is the Special Advisor on Media and Communications to the President-elect Bola Ahmed Tinubu, says that your Section 60, which you quoted, does not have anything to talk about, this electronic transmission. And he said that Section 38 of the Electoral Act 2022 relied upon, I'm quoting him now, by the People's Democratic Party and the Labour Party to challenge the result of the February 25th presidential election has nothing to do with transmission of election results. And he goes on to say, in any case, the process of transmitting results from polling units, whether real time, 2 days later, or at any time, cannot in any way change the results that have been announced at the polling units. What do you have to say to that?
I told you that these people don't even have shame. The other day, I was also listening to the president of the Nigerian Senate, a man who breached the Electoral Act that said that you are not supposed to contest for 2 elections in 1 election cycle. You were very much aware he ran for the presidency and he lost very woefully, and proceeded to use his powers to usurp a ticket that was already given to somebody in his senatorial district. He was also trying to transmit and translate and at the same time interpret the provision of the Electoral Act with respect to whether there is a difference between transmission and transfer. And I began to wonder who is going to listen to such a man that have lost integrity. And so now when you come to my elder brother, Dele Alake, they are now beginning to look for one technicality that does not add up. If in an election, just like in a football match, a man scored a goal, or maybe there's an infringement at the goalpost, and then you decide that you are going to award a penalty, and then the goalkeeper balances waiting for you to play the ball, not knowing that some persons at the back of the goalpost have shifted the goalpost to the right part of the field, while he's still looking at the man who is to play the ball and balancing, hoping to protect the ball. The man plays the ball and he looks as if he's going off the cuff, in which case he's supposed to be over. And all of a sudden he starts to rejoice that this ball has gone off the track, only for him to see that the goalpost has been shifted, and then they say that the man scored a goal. That is what the APC did. You cannot begin to think of changing the rule or changing the position of the goalpost in the course of a match. Right. So if when we entered into this exam and when the law was passed, we all rejoiced and had hope that technology was going to play a very, very critical role and help us. And today, they have started this, what Fela called government magic. They have started again. That tells you they are not even interested in having a country that works. Most regrettable. All
right, just before I let you go, finally, the governorship elections will be on March 11. And, the APC says you have been beaten hopelessly, if I may use that word, in Delta State, that they thought that the PDP would perform very well in Delta State. But it looks like you left all your flanks, if I may use the football language you used earlier, open, and the Labour Party just came from the midfield and scored a goal. What are your preparations for the March 11 election so that maybe you'll be on the defensive this time around, not allow the APC or Labour Party to score another goal again in Delta State?
Well, the issue of the labor wave is very much clearly understood by a number of Nigerians, what the youths wanted, and whether they were being very much informed as to the issues around their quest is a different ballgame. That was what they wanted, and then the obedient factor was very, very clear. Using also taking advantage of the churches that believed that there was a need for them to have a Christian president, or that also played a very, very critical role. Those factors that triggered the obedient movement is not very, very also present today in the governorship election. Apart from the fact that they are disturbed that now today they believe that the APC is a party of election riggers, and as such they are disappointed, we are now coming home where the push have come to shore. In which case, the APC, do you know that the Labour Party, not until even after this election, I never even knew they had a governorship candidate in the state. It was after that we started seeing the man's poster on Facebook. But most Deltans are not even in support of that person. I have told you a while ago that the difference between obedience and Labour Party. The obedience believe in the Obi mission, not strictly that of Labour Party. So if you think because you are on the platform of the Labour Party today, and as such you are going to have a smooth ride like Obi was having, that person is going to be progressing in error. And then for the APC, they are minors when it comes to Delta, but we defeated them in that election, even if the Labour Party came top. They have always been behind us in Delta, more so where we also have a candidate that is grassrooted, and that a candidate that is also going to benefit from the very wonderful goodwill of Governor Kowa and the PDP based on what Governor Kowa have done in Delta. Now the analysis will be just Delta. They are not going to be analyzing the whole country. So if anybody is thinking that the rain that fell last weekend is also going to fall this weekend, next weekend, the person may need to think twice.
All right, thanks so much, Charles Aniagu. And of course, we just hope your principal, Governor Ifeanyi Okowa, is doing well. I mean, after last Saturday's election result, and of course, himself and his principal, Atiku Abubakar, are set to fully challenge the election results. But we just hope he's doing well. Just very quickly before I let you go.
He's doing quite well. He's doing quite well. The only disappointment is that INEC did not allow Nigerians to see how we can begin to move forward. But I can tell you my principals are doing quite well. All
right. Our warm greetings to him. Charles Aniagu is
Thank you.
Commissioner for Information in Delta State, and of course, one of the spokespersons of the People's Democratic Party. We must thank you so much for joining us to provide some illumination into that electoral challenge that's going to be going on at the presidential elections tribunal, and then of course eventually heading to the Supreme Court. Thank you so much for joining us from Asaba, the Delta State capital.